Good morning, everyone. So, I almost skipped 2 weeks of videos, and that is because I have been trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this. A week ago, I recorded a video that was very long, full of information, but by the time I finished, I felt like it was lacking something. And it took me a while to figure out what it was, and at first I thought it was too much information, but what I realized was that there was no me in it. There were no real opinions, perspectives, stories, anything that people could relate to. It was just this giant info dump. And info dumps are useful, um, but through that experience and calling any number of people to ask for advice on how I should structure my videos, what's the ideal length of time, all that kind of stuff, um, everyone had some kind of opinion. But ultimately, they kept saying, "Don't worry, you'll know what to do. You'll know what to do. Like, just do what feels right." And people also said that it's right to experiment now, while my viewership is small and I'm just getting started. Because once you get more people who look at yourself and expect your content to be in a certain way, they kind of want it to be fixed in what they want to consume. And that really is the crux of the issue, is that I don't want to create information. I don't want to create videos that is just to be consumed. I don't want to just add to the cacophony of saturated infotainment, eye candy that there is today. And that's not that I'm not judging everyone. Um, I'm not saying that everyone's out for that reason, and I'm not saying that there's not real, authentic, vulnerable, transformative stuff out there. But to some degree, we've been made to believe that we should just keep consuming that which exactly that what we want, um, and and that's not. I don't want to contribute to that. I'm not. I don't want to just create something that could be created by some AI that's auto-generating catchy thumbnail, clickbait title, you know, whatever. I don't, that's not why I'm doing this. In the last 2 weeks, I've become very clear that my goal for these videos is to transform. And that might not necessarily happen through the words I say. And that's like the biggest shift that I've had. I keep wanting to come up with these topics and have these perfect outlines of exactly what I want to say. I know that scripting is already wrong. It just won't work. Pre-writing everything I'm going to say and just reading it back off to you on a screen is not how I ever communicate. Anyone who knows me knows that I get the most tuned in and the most on when I'm speaking in conversation and when I'm on the phone, and it pulls wisdom through me. And I think that's what I need to recreate in these videos. And it wasn't until I spoke to my friend Dan a couple days ago that I got really crystal clear on that, which is that the whole point of me doing this is not to offer my ideas or viewpoints or whatever. For someone who's talking about spiritual things, it's at a level deeper than that. And for the people who are just clicking on the videos and happen to find it, but have no agreements to work with me in this lifetime, they're just going to consume the information. It might be interesting. They're going to click off, whatever. For the people who have agreements to work with me, they just need, it's almost like a permission slip. They just need an excuse to be involved in my energy field. And I know this because I've had teachers where the work was not done through convincing or logical action or anything like that. It was simply being around that person, observing their life, resonating with them, and something shifts. And I know that there's no proof for that. So those who know, know. And it really gets to the question of what is a spiritual teacher? And I think a spiritual teacher is someone, well, there are different types of teaching. You can teach knowledge, and then you can teach wisdom, and then you can be a spiritual teacher. And so there's those three types of teachers, I think. So you probably know, in Sanskrit we have this term pandit, which is entered English, and that's just a learned person, someone who went to school and studied stuff. There might not be wisdom in what they're saying, but they just know a lot of things. Then there's a guru, who is someone who teaches wisdom, someone who enlightens, right? And even that person is not necessarily a spiritual teacher, even though they're teaching about spiritual things. I would argue probably most of them are, they end up being. But the difference between a guru, or someone who teaches wisdom, and a spiritual teacher is that a spiritual teacher teaches through the medium of spirit. And that's what I'm really talking about. That it's not just the words or the image or the sound of my voice or anything like that. It is something beneath that. And so when I finished the video a week ago, I realized the energy wasn't there. It was full of stuff. There was content, but was there the spiritual, did the spiritual, was the energy woven into the video in such a way that someone who's listening to it and contemplating the ideas could also be transformed by it? And the answer was no. And that's okay. I'm still learning. But my friend Dan really helped me realize that only happens when I'm doing this, which means not when I'm thinking there's an escape hatch of editing, or, oh, I can rework this word, or I can choose, whatever. Like, if I get to craft the image and make the video exactly what I want it to be, make it look a certain way, satisfy the algorithm, satisfy, the expectations of YouTube content consumers, I don't care about that. I really don't care about that. What I care about is being authentic and honest and clear in exactly what I have to offer in every moment. And to be honest, that's called channeling. That does not happen by scripting, outlining, whatever. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to think about what I'm saying. But I don't enter this flow without being in this state of mind. And I can't be looking at notes to be in this state of mind. I can't be looking at a script to be in this state of mind. And so what I've decided is when I feel guided to, I'm going to turn the camera on, record, sync the audio with the video, and upload. That's it. No cuts, no editing, nothing. You're going to hear all my ums, my uhs, my poor word choices, my rewording. If I'm sitting off center, I'll fix it next time. And so the goal will be create whenever I want to. Really channel when I feel guided to, which might be anything between, once every month to twice a day. I don't know. Realistically, it'll probably be a couple times a week. And the reason for that is that when you really try to consider how do you live a spiritual life, it is not by studying spiritual books or finding spiritual teachers or necessarily even doing spiritual practices. Those can all help and they're all useful. But the way you live a spiritual life is by living your life with your eyes open. Seeing what is happening around you, observing, understanding why you do what you do. All the lessons that have to be learned exist inside the experience themselves. And that's it. Sometimes we get caught up in the specifics of the experience, or sometimes we're too in the emotions of it all to actually stop and take a moment and see the lesson in every moment. But that is the only requirement. If you can get to a point where you just simply ask yourself, why is this happening? That's it. Ultimately, there's no right or wrong anything. There's no right or wrong life. I don't believe that you can ever waste time. And I don't believe that the soul believes that there's such a thing as wasted time. Because all experiences are useful to the soul. Even, I have some friends. One of my friends, I remember he used to lay on his bed. He used to come home from work or whatever, lay on his bed and just stare up at the ceiling fan and just think about life and feel his feelings, At the exact same time, I was working 2 jobs, stressed out of my mind, and making money, being a productive member of society. The government will tax me on that money. And I just remember thinking, I have so much to learn from him. Not by him sitting and teaching me, but simply by being around his energy of that deep-seated, grounded relaxation. And also just observing it. And there's no judgment. It's so easy to look at us and think, oh, one is a productive member and one is just wasting his time. Absolutely not. I have things to teach him, and he has things to teach me. That's how I think it is for literally everyone. No one is on this planet because it's a mistake or it's just a cosmic coincidence. We are all here because we're supposed to be here. And everything we do, every choice we make, all of it is valid. That's simply it. The question becomes, are you living the life that you want to live? And we might think that is a life chosen because we have logicked out exactly what we want our life to be and what it looks like or whatever. But there are plenty of people who are living lives that they don't want to be living simply because they're doing what they think is expected of them. I don't think that's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when someone feels that they're in alignment with themselves. And if you want to say in alignment with their soul or high self, whatever language you want to use, people know when they're acting in accordance with themselves or not. People know when they're out of integrity and not. People know when they're embodying their essence and when they're not. This does not have to be taught. There are no rules. You don't have to have a guideline. People know. That information comes through your body primarily. The problem is that it comes through the body because everyone, especially in the modern world, we live too quickly. We live inundated with stuff. We're overwhelmed. Our channels on our mind are overwhelmed. Socially, we're overwhelmed. Politically, we're overwhelmed. Physically, we're overwhelmed. And people are turning to a lot of compulsive behaviors simply just to feel safe in this world. And I don't sit here in judgment of those people. The world's asking a lot of us, and we're just trying to cope. If you never take what you have that's running you now and you never put it down, how do you ever get relief? And how do you ever get perspective? It's impossible. You cannot. Then you end up running off of conditioned patterns from who knows when you never put down. It's not going to lead to a happy life, period. Not because the actions aren't... You could end up putting everything you have down, have for instance perspective, pick it all back up and do it exactly the same way, but feel very different. And the reason is that your intention and your understanding of why you're doing what you're doing has shifted. If you're just doing it because of momentum or inertia or conditioning, you'll never feel fulfilled because fundamentally, the more you do it, the less it matters, the less purpose it has. When you put it down, you get perspective, you get gratitude, you get appreciation for the experiences you have. So, this is what I actually have to offer you. It is me and my life. And anyone who knows me knows that I live life with my eyes open. And I have many, many, many books on spirituality, but I have read so few of them. And it's almost to the point where they're like decoration. But they're there to ground my interest, to remind me of what I care about. And I don't regret any of them, but I don't read any of them. And I think it was because I've been through the period where I was a seeker and just trying to pull as much information that I could find, and everything was exciting, and new spiritual ideas and new points to connect. And I went to places and I saw people learn spiritual truths, and they just put it on their body. It was like they were adorning themselves with some spiritual eye candy of, well, look at this cool thing I know, and like, sacred geometry and these crystals. And I'm like, why are you doing this? What's the point? Is it just to glorify the self? And I'm not attacking the ego or anything. In fact, I don't believe the ego is bad or evil or anything. I think that's like I'll talk about it some other time, but like, that is not a helpful model anymore, I don't think. What I mean is, if you're just going to show up here to live in self-delusion, what's the point? The same material or whatever that you're consuming that is spiritual could be applied to your life in a transformative way if you let it transform you. But what you choose to do instead is take the information, externalize it, and put it on like it's an accessory to your life. Why bother? Why even waste the time? If you want to accessorize your life, go get something like a job. You know what I mean? Like, there are more efficient ways to accessorize your life, is what I'm saying. And those people are also on the path too. Sometimes you're not coming from a place where you're considering spiritual things from any point in your life, and you kind of have to learn to sensitize yourself to your spiritual nature. And frankly, it took me about 15 years to actually take myself seriously. And I think that's a really tough thing to own, but it's very true. I didn't always know. I knew all the ideas, and I already had a sense of discernment. But when it came to putting into practice, I didn't do it. And I used to think, I'm not doing it because I'm too lazy. I cannot meditate because I just don't have discipline. And it's not true. It's just that I didn't believe it. I knew about the ideas, I could feel the resonance, but it wasn't enough to take me over the edge to do things in a way that would lead to my growth. But I would study new languages and start new jobs and like start new programming languages, and I could do that fine. And those were hard. Why? Because I saw the value. I saw the way that it would help me grow. And I couldn't really see it with the spirituality. To be honest, I didn't ever really see it. I had that experience last year that opened my mind to the fact that, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And there's something about that moment. There's something about that moment that really made me consciously choose to own this path. And so what I'm trying to say is, let the energy transform you. Live with your eyes open. The point of a spiritual life is to seek truth. That's it. It's to understand more deeply. Not in a self-deluded way, not in a way that feels comfortable or easy. And sometimes it is comfortable and easy. But often it isn't. Not by virtue of that suffering must be part of the experience. But people get used to a certain understanding. The unknown and change is hard. Learning to embrace that will reduce the suffering. But until you'll suffer through that. Change is simply hard. That's just how it is. And spiritual truth will reveal itself to you if you want to know it. Why? This is getting a little deeper than I meant to be, but Why? Because because isness is the point. Consciousness is simply what is. Consciousness and existence are almost synonyms. So it's not like there's some deep thing to discover that's like out there, or something to connect that's novel. No, it's saturated in literally everything as it is right now. So you live a life with your eyes open. You actively live your life. You show up for your life. You be present for your life. And it will just unfold for you. You don't need any teachers, books, products, courses, whatever. You don't. But could it be nice to have those things along the way to help you when you falter, to remind you of what matters, to find community, to find support? Absolutely. That stuff's useful, but not necessary. But very, very useful. So anyway, I can feel it's coming to a close, which is just to say, well, I'll say first and foremost, I love this. Now that from the beginning of this video to now, I love this. This is how it is always supposed to be. I'm not struggling to find my words. Just a little reflection on a little validation that this is the format, which means it might not be in this background. Maybe I'll record something at school or out at the park. I don't know, whatever. This little audio thing that I have is so cool, and it's so portable, and I kind of love it. So it allows me to record anywhere. But anyway, I'll just say this will work for some people and won't work for some people. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. It's nice to feel like I'm speaking to someone on the other side and not just presenting an idea. One day I hope, I was talking to my friend, Dan, and we kept talking. He was like, so where do you see this going? And he's like, is it just that you're going to sit in front of the camera and do this? And I was like, yeah, well, that's where it's going to start. And he's like, well, what about like answering people's questions, or like having people interviewing people or whatever? And that's actually, that I would love for it to be that. It's a lot easier for me to pull through information when people ask me questions. There's just something different about it. For me, when I have to sit here and just channel, if I don't have someone asking, I just have to be in this supreme place of faith and just trust that whatever's coming through will be useful to somebody. When someone asks, I know it will be useful, so it makes it a little easier. But also, I don't have all the answers, and I've met some people, especially since last year, when I used to kind of only really meet the people who would adorn themselves with spiritual ideas, and it kind of gave me a negative sense of the new age kind of stuff, And then since last year, time and time again, I keep meeting these people who I can feel the authenticity and resonance of what they are talking about. And I'm like, where have you guys been my whole life? The people who are just here to do good work, And I realized what shifted was me. Because I didn't take myself seriously before. And I wasn't adorning myself as much, but I was just kind of hoarding these concepts as like ideas. And now I'm finally putting those into practice, and I'm letting them transform me, and I'm changing with it, And so now I resonate with people who either have done that as well or are doing that authentically and vulnerably. And that feels wonderful, because I don't think we're ever really truly alone. This world is infinite, this universe is infinite, this existence is infinite. We're never going to be alone. It's just we have to find our people. Ellie commented on a previous video. She said, yes, the spiritual path is one that you walk alone, but it's nice to find your people, your tribe. And she's absolutely right. That's so, the purpose of life is to be in joy. I don't think an enlightened life is one that's dispassionate and you're just living in the mountains, renounce the world, and no longer there's no point in you being here. Why? You're here. There's the nectar of the world. There's the beauty of the world. Go enjoy it. This life is meant to be enjoyed. It's just that at some point you go from simply enjoying the physical aspects, the food and the people and the sex and those things, then you become aware of your spirituality and your spiritual nature, and so you start enjoying the other multidimensional aspects of who you are. And then at some point you completely have internalized those aspects, and then you have options. Then you can do things in the world, and every time the increase of consciousness happens, the capacity for joy increases. So go enjoy your life. Have a good life. um, Man. So I'm gonna end it here because I have no smart way to return this. So this is what I have to offer. I hope it works for whoever it needs to work for. And I feel good doing this. Please engage if you, one day if I have interviews or whatever, there's some really cool people out there that I would love to get to know better, and whose voices I would love to lift up, because it's a team effort, you know? Yeah. So anyway, have a lovely day, and yeah, many blessings and love to all of you. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.